Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. If you close your eyes and think back to your own childhood, what are the moments that truly stick with you? Chances are, you aren't thinking about a worksheet you filled out in the third grade. You probably aren't thinking about the time you successfully memorized the state capitals, or the time you sat quietly in a row while a teacher lectured about long division. Instead, you are likely remembering a moment of discovery. Maybe it was the time you found a frog in the creek and spent an hour watching it breathe, realizing suddenly that it was a living, beating thing just like you. Maybe it was the time you got lost in a storybook, so deeply that the real world just melted away. Or maybe it was a moment of pure, unadulterated play, building a fort in the living room, where the couch cushions were castle walls and you were the hero of your own epic saga. That feeling, that sense of wonder, of natural curiosity, of a spirit that is alive and burning before it ever steps foot in a classroom, is the core of Romanticism in education. For centuries, the dominant view of school has been somewhat mechanical. We often treat schools like factories and children like raw materials. The goal is to take this raw material, process it through 12 years of assembly line instruction, stamp it with a diploma, and ship it out to be a productive worker. In this view, the child is empty until we fill them, or wild until we tame them. Romanticism stands up and flips the table on that entire idea. It argues that the child is not a problem to be solved, an empty vessel to be filled, or a wild animal to be broken. The romantic view is that the child is born whole, good, and connected to a deep natural wisdom. The job of the educator isn't to mold the child into what society wants. It is to protect the child from what society wants, allowing their unique inner self to bloom. This is a journey into that philosophy. It is a look at the thinkers who dared to say that feelings matter more than facts, that nature is the best teacher, and that childhood is not just a waiting room for adulthood, but a sacred time that must be defended. To understand where this started, we have to go back to the 1700s, to a man named Jean-Jacques Rousseau. At the time, the world was obsessed with the Enlightenment. This was the age of reason. Science, logic, and intellect were king. The goal of education was to take a child and essentially civilize them as fast as possible, to dress them like a miniature adult, teach them manners, teach them Latin, and scrub away their primitive urges. Rousseau looked at this and said, "We are ruining everything." He dropped a bomb on the intellectual world with a book called Emile. In it, he laid out a radical premise. God makes all things good, man meddles with them, and they become evil. This is the cornerstone of romantic education. Rousseau believed that we are born naturally good. We have a moral compass and a natural curiosity installed in us by the Creator or nature. The problem isn't the child. The problem is society. Society is corrupt, fake, competitive, and obsessed with status. When we rush to socialize a child, we are actually just teaching them to be fake, envious, and unhappy. So Rousseau proposed a new kind of education, often called negative education. This doesn't mean being mean to the kid. It means that the teacher's job is not to add things to the child, but to subtract the bad influences. The teacher is a bodyguard. You protect the child from the corrupting influence of society and let nature do the teaching. In Rousseau's dream scenario, the boy Emile isn't sitting in a classroom memorizing books. In fact, Rousseau hated books. He famously said, "I hate books. They only teach us to talk about things we know nothing about." Instead, Emile is outside. He is running, jumping, and climbing trees. If he wants to learn about physics, he doesn't read a formula. He throws a rock and watches it fall. If he wants to learn about geography, he doesn't look at a map. He explores the woods behind his house. The goal wasn't to create a scholar. The goal was to create a human being who was authentic, someone who knew who they were, who trusted their own gut, and who wasn't constantly looking over their shoulder to see if society approved of them. A gardener plants a seed, the student. The gardener cannot make the seed grow. He cannot reach inside the seed and pull out the stem. The seed already has the pattern for the plant inside it. A rose seed will become a rose, An oak seed will become an oak. The gardener's job is not to build the plant, but to create the environment. He provides the soil, the water, and the sunlight. He pulls the weeds, protects from corruption. If the plant has brown leaves, the gardener doesn't paint them green. He asks, what is wrong with the soil? He looks at the environment. He trusts the plant's internal drive to grow. This shift from controlling the outcome to nurturing the environment is the heartbeat of Romanticism. It requires a massive amount of trust. You have to trust that if you give a child freedom, safety, and love, they will actually learn. You have to trust that they won't just sit on the couch and rot. You have to trust that the drive to learn is as natural as the drive to breathe. If you want to understand the difference between romantic education and traditional education, you just have to look at the metaphors they use. Traditional education often acts like a sculptor. A sculptor starts with a block of stone, the student. The stone has no say in the matter. The sculptor has a vision in his head of what the statue should look like. He takes a chisel and a hammer and hacks away at the stone until it matches his vision. If the stone is hard or has a weird grain, the sculptor forces it. The control is 100% in the hands of the artist. The result is a fixed, finished product. Romantic education acts like a gardener. Rousseau was the theorist, the guy writing big ideas in a study, but the people who actually tried to make this work in real life were the true heroes of the movement. One of the most important was a Swiss man named Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi. He took Rousseau's high-flying ideas and tried to apply them to orphans and poor children. Pestalozzi had a mantra that is pure Romanticism: head, heart, and hands. He believed you couldn't just teach the brain, the head. You had to engage the emotions, the heart, and the physical body, the hands. But for Pestalozzi, the heart came first. He believed that love was the foundation of all learning. If a child didn't feel loved and safe, their brain would simply shut down. Modern neuroscience actually backs this up 100%, by the way. Pestalozzi's schools were chaotic by the standards of his time. They weren't silent rows of terrified kids. They were communities. He acted like a father, not a warden. He believed that domestic life, the warmth of a family, was the best model for a school. Then came Friedrich Froebel, a student of Pestalozzi who gave the world one of its greatest inventions, the kindergarten. Translate that word from German: garden of children. Before Froebel, school for little kids was basically just sit still and shut up training. Froebel looked at children and saw that their natural state was play. To a traditionalist, play is a waste of time. It's what you do when you're done with your real work. To a romantic like Froebel, play is the work. He believed that when a child plays, they are expressing their inner soul. They are making sense of the universe. When a kid stacks blocks, they are learning about gravity, balance, and structure. When they play house, they are learning about empathy and social roles. Froebel designed special toys called gifts, balls, wooden blocks, cylinders that were meant to unlock a child's understanding of cosmic harmony. He didn't lecture them on geometry. He let them feel the sphere and the cube in their hands. He trusted that the spirit of the shape would speak to the spirit of the child.